Hello, everyone. What happens when the man who came too late to protect the woman he loves discovers, in the middle of that same frightened night, that his delay was planned from the beginning, and every minute he lost on the road may have been carefully stolen so someone else could reach her door first? If your heart can still endure one more night where love and danger breathe under the same roof, stay with me. After the porch light went dark, the house did not fall into silence. It fell into listening. Every sound became too clear. The wind touching the trees, a loose board near the steps answering the cold, the small restless breath of baby Henry from the room inside. Even the faint hum of Alex's phone in his hand seemed louder than it should have, as if the darkness outside had sharpened every ordinary thing into warning. Tuna stood in the doorway between the front room and the bedroom, her face pale in the dim interior light. Henry was finally asleep again, or close to it, laid carefully on the bed, only after long minutes of trembling, clinging and half cries that still seemed to live in his tiny body even after his eyes had closed. At 1 year old, he could not ask what frightened him. He could only search for safety by touch, by warmth, by the nearness of the woman whose heartbeat had always told him the world was still whole. Alex saw the fear in Tuna's face and the exhaustion underneath it, and some part of him wanted nothing more than to go to her, to take both her cold hands in his and say the one thing he had failed to say before fear broke the night open. But another part of him, the harder part, had already turned toward the dark. Because whoever had taken his ring, whoever had left it at her gate, whoever had called with that calm, poisonous voice, was not finished. And then his phone rang again, not unknown this time. To Heng Sewang. And before he answered, something in him already knew that whatever she had remembered would make the night worse. Alex stepped away from the doorway before taking the call, though not far enough that he could not still see Tuna if he turned his head. Ti-inch. Hung. Her breathing came first, uneven and apologetic, the sound of someone who had spent hours forcing herself to be calm and had only now understood that one missed detail might matter terribly. I'm sorry to call this late, she said. I tried to sleep, I couldn't. I think I remembered something. Alex's eyes lifted at once toward the dark window. What? In the bedroom, Tuna saw the change in his face before she heard any answer. She remained still, one hand resting lightly beside Henry on the blanket, as if even that small touch might keep him anchored in sleep. The baby had rolled only slightly onto one side, lips parted, one little fist tucked near his cheek. Now and then his fingers twitched. Even in rest, he did not look peaceful enough. Ti-ing. And Joe Hung swallowed audibly on the line. When the man grabbed my bag, I was trying to pull it back. He dragged me. I fell. I remember that much. But after you came, everything was confused. Tell me what you remember now. There was a voice, she whispered. Not the thief. Someone else. Alex's jaw tightened. Where? In the car. The black car. Her voice shook with the effort of reaching back into fear. I didn't see the face clearly, but when the thief ran, I heard a man from inside the car say something before they drove away. Alex turned fully toward the front room now, every part of him listening. What did he say? On the other end came a pause, as though Tiam Jai Hukt Houghton hated the words even before repeating them. He said that should keep him busy long enough. The room seemed to lose temperature. Alex did not answer immediately. Teen Jot Home hurried on, frightened by his silence. I wasn't sure then. I thought maybe I heard wrong. I was shaking. I was on the ground. But after you left, after I kept thinking about it, I'm sure that was what I heard. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Alex closed his eyes for 1 second. That should keep him busy long enough. Not a theft of chance, not desperation, not a criminal seeing an easy target. A delay, a measured one, just enough chaos, just enough moral obligation, just enough injury to trap him inside the kind of choice he would never walk away from. And while he was helping Tia Hai's own, someone else had gone to Tuna's house. Did you hear anything else? He asked quietly. No, only that, and... She hesitated. And what? I think the driver knew your name. Alex's fingers tightened around the phone. I'm not completely sure, she said quickly. But when you were helping me into the car, I thought I heard the voice say Mr. Alex, very low, almost like a joke. I didn't understand it then, I do now. From the bedroom doorway, Tuna could no longer stay where she was. She came slowly into the front room, her steps careful so as not to wake Henry, though her eyes never left Alex's face. He thanked Tehaisha, Adon, told her to keep her doors locked, promised he would handle the rest, and ended the call with a calm he did not feel. For a moment he stood motionless. Then Tuna said softly, "It was connected, not a question." Alex looked at her and nodded once. "The robbery," he said. "It was staged to delay me." The words seemed to move through the room like something physical. Tuna put one hand against the back of a chair, not because she might faint, but because the truth had suddenly become heavier than fear alone. Before, danger had still held one small corner of uncertainty. Maybe coincidence, maybe random cruelty that had crossed their path by accident. Now even that mercy was gone. "So they knew you were coming here," she whispered. "Yes. Yes. And they knew enough to stop you first." "Yes." The honesty of that answer hurt both of them. Tuna lowered her eyes. Henry made a small sound from the next room, a sleepy, vulnerable murmur, and she turned instinctively toward him before realizing he had not fully woken. That tiny sound was enough to make her chest tighten again. Everything felt sharper now that intent had been named. Whoever was behind this had not merely frightened her, they had arranged the order of the evening. Alex saw the fear return to her face and spoke before it could sink deeper. "They planned the delay." "That doesn't mean they'll get what they want." Tuna looked back at him. "What do they want?" He wished he could answer cleanly. "Business revenge. A hostile competitor, someone angry over land, shipments, money, influence, any motive that could be measured and fought in daylight." Instead, he had to say, "I'm not sure yet." That uncertainty was worse than certainty would have been. Tuna folded her arms around herself, a quiet substitute for the child she had just laid down. "Someone took your ring. Someone watched my house. Someone used another woman to keep you away." Her voice trembled only once, then steadied. "This doesn't feel like business, Alex." No, it didn't. It felt like someone studying weakness. And the weakness now was love. Alex moved to the window and looked out. Though there was little to see beyond the reflected dimness of the room and the black shape of the yard, he could feel Tuna behind him, trying to stay composed for Henry, for herself, perhaps even for him. When he spoke, his voice had dropped lower. "This person wanted me to know that reaching you can be prevented." He turned. "And wanted you to know that even what I feel for you can be touched." Tuna's lashes lowered. The ring still stood between them like a confession. Neither of them had been given the right to meet gently. For a while, neither spoke. Then Henry cried. Not loudly, just one sudden broken cry from the bedroom, the kind that comes from a baby caught in the leftovers of fear while still half asleep. Tuna crossed the room immediately. Alex stepped aside without a word as she passed him and watched from the doorway as she bent over the bed. Henry's eyes were still closed. His face was crumpled. Both hands moved weakly in the air, searching. "Mommy's here," Tuna whispered at once, lifting him before he could fully wake into distress. The transformation was immediate, heartbreaking in its simplicity. His crying softened the moment her arms enclosed him. He pressed himself into her, still not awake enough to understand anything except that the right warmth had returned. Alex looked away for a second because the tenderness of it struck too deeply. The threat outside had been intelligent, invasive, cruel, but this little boy, quieting only when gathered against his mother's chest, was the pure center of what stood to be broken. Tuna came back carrying Henry, who had settled into that fragile in-between state, where a baby is no longer crying but not truly sleeping either. His cheek rested on her shoulder. One tiny hand curled against her collar. His body still carried little shivers now and then, fading more slowly than tears. Alex pulled out a chair for her near the inside wall away from the windows. She sat. For several minutes, the only sound was the soft rhythm of Tuna's hand moving over Henry's back. Then Alex spoke. "I need to tell the police everything, the robbery, the black car, the calls, the package." Tuna nodded faintly. "Will it help? It may not be enough tonight." He did not soften it, but it matters. She looked down at Henry. "And tomorrow?" Alex did not answer immediately, because tomorrow was no longer simply tomorrow. It was where choices would begin costing them. The police call was short, practical, and painfully insufficient. Alex gave details. Times. Sequence. The sentence, "To answer," had remembered. The voice on the phone, the delivered package, the threatening note, he was promised follow-up, the troll attention if available, formal statements in daylight. Daylight. The word felt weak against the weight of the night. When he ended the call, Tuna was still seated with Henry in her arms. The baby had drifted back into sleep at last, heavy again now, one sock slipping low around his ankle. Tuna adjusted it automatically, then kept her hand there a moment longer than necessary. As if touching some small ordinary thing could steady her, Alex stood across from them and felt an ache so sharp it nearly resembled regret for every restrained word he had ever chosen around her. He had wanted to come slowly, carefully, respectfully, to let trust deepen without pressure, to let Henry become used to him, to let Tuna choose him without fear clouding the shape of what he offered. Now fear had entered first, and yet beneath that sorrow another truth had become impossible to deny. Whatever happened next, he could no longer stand outside the life of this woman and her child, as though he were merely a visitor passing through. "Tuna," he said quietly. She looked up. He had said her name countless times before, but not like this. Not with the night so stripped bare around them. "This is because of me." She opened her mouth at once. "No." He stopped her gently with a small shake of his head. "Not because I chose it, but because someone chose to use me to reach you. I won't pretend otherwise." Tuna looked down again. Henry's breath warmed the side of her neck. In the low light, her face seemed both younger and more tired than usual, as if fear had erased whatever distance she kept between vulnerability and composure. "If that's true," she said after a moment, "then maybe Henry and I are safer if you stay away." The words were soft. That made them devastating. Alex did not move. Somewhere inside him, something understood before the pain arrived that she was not pushing him away in coldness. She was doing what mothers did when terror reached too close, cutting their own hearts if that was what it took to shield a child. Henry stirred faintly, sensing the change in her body. Tuna lowered her face at once and kissed the top of his head. Alex let the silence pass before he answered. When he did, his voice was steady, but there was strain underneath it now. "If I leave, do you think they stop watching?" Tuna said nothing. "If I step back, do you think the ring disappears, the calls disappear? The fact that they already know where your gate is, where Henry sleeps when you're alone?" He took one careful step closer, not pressing, only refusing distance to do the speaking for him. "This is already here." Tears brightened her eyes but did not fall. "Then what am I supposed to do?" There was no clean answer. That was the cruelty of it. Alex crouched slightly so he could speak without towering over her and the child in her arms. "You let me help you protect him," he said. "You let me protect both of you." Henry made a small, sleepy complaint, and both of them instinctively softened their voices. Tuna looked at the baby for a long moment. 1 year old. No words, no steps, no defense except the adults who chose not to fail him. When she finally looked back at Alex, there was fear still in her face, but something else, something more surrendered than before. Not to weakness, but to truth. "I'm afraid," she whispered. He answered immediately. "I know, not only for me, I know. What if next time you're farther away?" He held her gaze. "Then I make sure there isn't a next time like tonight." The promise was impossible in its size and yet utterly sincere. Tuna's hand moved again over Henry's back. That motion had become the rhythm of the episode itself, motherhood as breath, as prayer, as the one steady act still possible when everything else had turned uncertain. After a while, Alex made tea because there was nothing else gentle enough to do with his hands. The domesticity of it nearly broke Tuna's heart. The kettle, the cupboard opened quietly. 2 chipped cups lifted from a shelf she knew too well. The ordinary sounds belonged to another kind of night. One where Henry would have woken hungry, where Alex might have sat near the table and said something understated that made her smile despite herself. Now every kindness seemed edged by danger. He set a cup near her, then remained standing instead of sitting. "Drink while it's warm," she nodded. Minutes passed. The house held. Then Alex's phone vibrated again. Both of them stiffened instantly, but this time the name on the screen was not unknown. "Chin-ju-ha," he answered at once. A voice came in a frightened rush. I remembered one more thing. Alex turned away only enough to hear clearly. "Tell me, when the thief pulled my bag, something fell out. I bent to grab it before he dragged me." She was breathing quickly now. "I thought it was just a receipt, but after I got home, I found it stuck to the lining of my sleeve." "What was it?" "A delivery tag." She hesitated. "It had your company's warehouse stamp on it." Alex went still. Across the room, Tuna watched his face lose the last trace of uncertainty. "Timasaha," and continued, voice shaking harder now. "I don't know how it got there. I swear I didn't have anything from your company, but the stamp is there. I checked twice. And on the back." She stopped. "On the back what?" "There's a number written in pen. I think it's a storage bay number. Maybe one of yours." Alex closed his eyes briefly. That was not random contamination. It was a message buried inside the robbery for him to find, if not there, then later. A signature from someone close enough to his operations to use his own world as part of the threat. "Keep it," he said. "Don't show anyone else. I'll get it from you in the morning." He ended the call and turned back to Tuna. She already knew the answer before he spoke. "It's someone connected to my business," he said. The words did not calm her. They sharpened everything. "Someone close. Maybe." The silence after that was deep enough that they both heard it at the same time. A sound outside. Not wind. Not branches. A soft crunch of gravel, somewhere beyond the porch. Alex moved instantly, every muscle alert. He set his tea down without sound and crossed to the lamp first, dimming it until the room fell into a lower amber glow. Then he looked at Tuna and spoke so quietly she barely heard him. "Take Henry into the bedroom. Stay away from the window." She rose with the baby already gathered close. No argument left in her now, only fear and obedience shaped by necessity. Henry stirred against her shoulder, but did not wake fully. One tiny hand opened and closed once against the fabric of her blouse. Alex waited until she disappeared into the room before he stepped toward the front window and drew the curtain edge back by barely an inch. At first he saw only the yard, pale in scraps under the weak moonlight. Then near the gate, just beyond the line where the dark thickened around the fence posts, he saw it. Not a full figure, just the ember of a cigarette. Someone was standing out there, watching the house, and when Alex held perfectly still, the red point lowered slightly, as if the person beyond the gate had seen enough and was beginning very calmly to step back into the dark. The night has grown more dangerous because it is no longer ruled by fear alone, but by proof. Tim. In Shuhak, Bond's memory confirms that Alex was deliberately delayed, and the warehouse tag suggests the enemy may be tied to his own world more closely than he imagined. Inside the farmhouse, Tuna and baby Henry have become even more painfully precious to him, which is exactly what makes them vulnerable. And with someone now standing beyond the gate in the darkness, the next question is no longer whether they are being watched, but how long that watcher has already been there.